right. Hi, everyone. Happy Tuesday. Welcome to another show, our only show this week. And we have a special guest with us today, Lindsey Nova. She is the executive director of the Three Rivers Young People's Orchestra, known to many around here as TRYPO. Lindsey, thanks for joining us.
Hey, thanks so much for having me. Happy to be here.
So let's start, for those who don't know what TRYPO is, if you could give us kind of the thumbnail sketch of what it is.
Sure. So TRYPO is a youth music education program. We're in residence with many of our programs at Duquesne University. And we have 7 student programs, including a full orchestra, a string orchestra, a wind symphony, a chamber music program, a summer program, an apprentice conducting program, and a percussion ensemble. Try saying that 8 times. So we've been around since 1974. Most of the programs we do now were started in the last few years, but the top orchestra, YPO, was the first one around in 1974 under the name Three Rivers Training Orchestra. So,
really? Okay, didn't know that. Okay. Now, ever since 1974, you've been meeting in person, because that's
right.
kind of how ensembles.
Yeah, that's generally kind of part of our main setup, yes.
So that all kind of changed a little bit for everyone here in mid-March. And interestingly enough, you guys really said, okay, we have to figure out how to react to this and keep students engaged. Can you talk through a little bit how you've done that?
Yeah, well, it all, like with everyone, it happened really fast. So I would say none of us really prepared. We'd had a few staff meetings, talking about what might happen and, getting prepared to work from home. But I don't think any of us saw the breadth of this type of cancellation coming. So considering that between the time when we canceled things and moved everything online, it was pretty fast. Within the space of about a week, I think we got everything online. And that first session, we were practicing our Zooming and learning everything about how Zooms work. And the first session, we just said, we're just going to go. We're just going to do it. And fingers crossed that it goes well. And it did. And it was so wonderful on that first Saturday to see everybody together. And we've talked about for the first month of virtual TRYPO that we feel like we call it throw spaghetti at the wall mode. And, because normally, especially when we have an organization that's been around 1974, we're not really doing things drastically different here. There's subtle changes. We've certainly grown and evolved, but we don't, this was reinvent everything that we do in the space of a week. And so we've tried a lot of different things, and the things that resonate we keep, and the things that we move on. But it's hard to do that while that's been really interesting. But I have a great network of colleagues around the country through the League of American Orchestras, and pretty quickly, we were learning from each other. And one of the ones that really inspired me right off the bat was the Empire State Youth Orchestra, and she started sending us emails with what they're doing, and we can do that, okay, learn from what they're doing. And so this network of really amazing individuals from around the country, we've all just each other. And so that helped us get online quickly. And I think that one of the things that I've heard from some colleagues has been, throw a window for the time being how it is that you do what you do, and go down to the core of your mission. And it's okay to take a step back from the status quo and instead think of different ways to accomplish your mission that have nothing to do with how you were doing it before. So along those lines, then, we really focused on three aspects of virtual TRYPO. One is, first and foremost, just connecting with kids and keeping those lines of communication and visual communication. We think the visual aspect is really important to Zoom. But continuing to champion live performance and promoting artistic growth. So if we look at those 3 aspects of what we're doing, we may not be able to be in a rehearsal room together, but there's lots of ways that you can do those 3 things over Zoom. So that was a lot of pivot, was just on, okay, what does Zoom do well? And let's focus on those things. And, there's been a lot that we've developed over the course of that time that have been that lens of what does Zoom do well, and how do we focus on our 3 goals. So that's been how we've been achieving the pivot so far.
So I'm then curious for how has it worked with engaging the students who are involved? I mean, are you getting good engagement and they're coming and saying, yeah, we're willing to jump over these hurdles to be part of this?
Yeah, attendance has been really high, actually. I would say as good, if not even a little better than when we're in person. Of course, it helps that, you have, a car to get into and parking to find and things like that. But we basically set up a standing Saturday schedule. So all of the groups more or less during the times that they would have been meeting anyway. So Wednesday meets at 10, which is, considering these are high school kids, on 10 o'clock on a Saturday morning on a Zoom call. I'm very proud of them. So they meet at 10, and Symphonette, the string orchestra, meets at 11:15, and percussion ensemble meets at 12:15, and YPO meets at 1 o'clock, and the chamber music groups, there's 20 of them this year, and they meet, they have a scattered schedule throughout Saturday and Sunday. And then we've been doing like Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, extra, we call them hangouts, just with either local musicians or sometimes some pretty high profile musicians. We've been amazed with the people who have said yes, and some of the people that we're still working on that I will not announce yet. So it's been really inspiring to see all of the people who want to jump in and help, and who in turn are inspired by seeing these, hordes of young people like logging into a Zoom session to talk about music. It's inspiring everybody, I mean, all of these groups all around the country, right, to see that, these teenagers want to get up on Saturday morning at 10 o'clock, and they might be in their pajamas, but they're still there debating, not joking. This was one of the debates last week or 2 weeks ago. Mr. Lavelle, the Wind Symphony conductor, sent them into breakout rooms to define what good music is. It was fascinating, and then they had to come back and report to each other, what is good music? And that's not a discussion we would take time for, probably in a rehearsal. But when we can't make music together except for recordings, then we'll take the time to debate good music and see what the kids come up with. It was fascinating.
You've hit on a point that a lot of people have talked about as I've been talking to people here, that this is for those in the education space, this has been this chance to delve deeper into what it is that we're doing. Mm-hmm. What does this music, what's the history of this music? I was talking to Jonathan Helmick from Slippery Rock University last week, and he said it was so neat to take the wind ensemble and dive into the history of wind band music. And the kids were very into it. I just think that's such an awesome thing now that's happening across the spectrum. And especially in a situation like yours, where this isn't class for them. This is not, their high school band that they have to go and participate in. This is something that they've chosen to be a part of, and they're choosing to come and be a part of this, like you said, on Saturday morning, 10 o'clock. I think that's amazing.
Yeah. No, I think that's also what's special about it, is that, there are a lot of kids that really love music, and it's a major part of their life sometimes, in their normal day-to-day school life. And there's so many amazing schools out there, but they might not always have an opportunity to be surrounded with people who share that same passion. Right. And I think that's what organizations like TRYPO or any extracurricular organization is doing, is it's saying, you want to focus on this, here is a group of people that want to focus on that too. You find your tribe, you find your people. So I think that by getting them together in the Zoom rooms together to talk about music and have debates and whatever it is, I think it continues to give them at least as that is right now of, your tribe is still here, and we can still stare at each other on a computer screen, even if we can't be in the same room together. And so they still have that same connection as much as we can facilitate right now. So I think it's important.
And I really think that is going to be create better ensembles moving forward, because now we have this time to like fully understand what we're doing in the history and context. So when we're all back together, those ensembles are going to have this whole different feel, but they're also going to have this whole different knowledge. Yeah. So that in mind, I'm curious for your thoughts on the future. We're kind of asking everybody, pull out the crystal ball. What do you think it looks like? I know you've been doing some planning on what you think it could be. Obviously, no one knows, but what are your thoughts on the future of how TRYPO continues to function?
Well, I think that one of the things that we've talked about right off the bat was we cannot pretend this is going to be over soon. We can't pretend we're going to return back to normal. And if we sit here and wait, then we will drown. So this hard pivot to virtual TRYPO is not something we're doing for the short term. Frankly, we're anticipating that it's here for the next, 18 months. I mean, I'd rather be prepared for the worst scenario and have done, continued to build up our programming and that community instead of just waiting. Because I think if you just wait, then you're gonna wait yourself into bankruptcy. So not that it's about bankruptcy, but we, if we're not here, we can't serve anybody.
Right.
So
yeah.
So I think that it's one of the conversations that we started having months ago, frankly, even before the shutdown. What if this is not short term? So as we are planning for next year, we essentially are planning for, like many organizations, we're not unique to this, but plan A, plan B, plan C. And plan A is not super likely, but it's the one we have to start with because it's everything is normal. And if we have a regular season and here are our concerts and here's our rep, plan C is everything is virtual, and plan B is hybrid, small gatherings only, really focusing on the ability to be able to contact trace if needed. And I think that we all initially felt pretty overwhelmed by the thought of 3 simultaneous tracks of planning like that, because chances are we're going to be moving in between. Maybe we'll have a month where we think that we're in our plan A and then have to pivot to plan C and then maybe end in plan B. And that is just maddening to think of, especially because our normal program will start meeting in September for a concert in December. We don't do one concert a week. We don't work on rep that fast. It takes a semester to prep for one of those concerts. It's pretty overwhelming to try to figure out how to plan those 3 tracks until we had it felt like a light bulb moment a couple weeks ago where we realized if there are items in all 3 tracks, it will make that switching, if we have to switch, much more manageable. So we're actually going into next season very purposefully thinking about what kinds of items are in all 3 tracks that are things we can do virtually and together. And we're really excited about some of them. Just things about like focusing on living composers and focusing on connecting with other groups and, music that can be rehearsed online, in programs like Smart Music or with practice tracks, or we can play them in person, working on video content that if we're in person, we can do this with it. And if we're not, we can do this with it. And that concept of things that the same kinds of projects that are in all 3 tracks has really simplified is the wrong word, right. Made it manageable to think about, how to plan for next season. So, and then we're hoping that 21-22 then really can be focused on getting back to normal. So, although even then there's no normal anymore, I feel like, what we've learned about the capabilities of technology, be back together again. But I think this virtual connection is here to stay. There's things about this that we're never going to let go of. The ability to connect with our kids on Zoom immediately, adding in midweek stuff, bringing in guest speakers and guest artists to connect with kids in a way that we never would have done before. Like, we're not going to let any of that go. It's changed the face of how we do what we do completely. That's here to stay, I think.
And imagine as the technology evolves to make it a lot easier to do music potentially. I mean, the person who comes up with that is going to be the millionaire, right? To come out that you can really make this work.
Right.
So obviously you still want people, I would presume, to, as you're looking to next season, if you're interested in being part of any of the ensembles, the website, social media, we'll link to all that. But one of the other projects that you've kind of taken on that talks about how people can get involved in these youth orchestras, youth music organizations is Unisound. I'm going to give you a chance to talk a little bit about what that is and how people can find that.
Sure. So I think that, I can't necessarily speak to every city in the country or in the world, but I do think that Pittsburgh is incredibly unique in how rich it is with opportunities for kids. There are so many things and communities and organizations that kids can be involved in, and TRYPO is just one of them, and we're all a little bit different. I think we all serve our constituencies in a way that makes them unique in scratching the itch of that particular need. There's 5 youth orchestras. There's, I forget the number of how many youth choruses there are. There are really unique programs for kids to get involved with making music outside of school time. And one of the things that really has frustrated with me since I came on board on TRYPO is, I'd meet parents and they'd say, maybe their kid was auditioning for us in their junior year. And I'd talk to the mom and she'd say, if only I knew about you, if only I'd known, I would have joined 5 years ago. And I thought, how many parents just don't even know what their options are? And it's not even about like that everybody should be a member of TRYPO, because there's things that other organizations do that are different than us. It's about, a kid and a family finding an opportunity because they found the right opportunity, and not that somebody happened to tell them at a certain point in their time, and as the kid is growing up in their music development. So after a few years of just being frustrated and kind of generally talking to people about it, we got a little bit of funding to get a group together and hire a consultant to help facilitate a discussion. And we just sent out an invite to as many youth music organizations as we could think of. And I thought maybe like 10 people would come, but 30 people came to that first meeting. And there wasn't a huge agenda in terms of, it was really just what could we do together if we were moving in the same direction, and Unisound is kind of what came out of that. So one of the primary features of Unisound is it's an online directory. So there's around 30 organizations in there, and you can check out the profiles and see where their locations are and what kinds of programs they offer, and link to their website. There's also a blog, and there's information that gets posted there that's good for musical families. We've done other things. One of the big features, and the reason that Mark, you got connected with Unisound, is because we were doing instrument petting zoos at like the Three Rivers Arts Festival and the Latino Community Center's Back to School Bash. And the instrument petting zoos are just a great way for kids, especially if they haven't had a chance to touch an instrument or try one, to get to pick one up and see what kind of sounds it makes, and learn a little bit about different instruments. So different things like that, just trying to get Pittsburgh families connected with Pittsburgh organizations. That's kind of the goal of Unisound. I would say that since the shutdown, we've done a little bit on, getting the group reconnected and learning about what kinds of professional development organizations are interested in. But there's just, obviously there's a lot on everybody's plate. So trying to do what we can to make a difference for the people who are looking for information.
And we'll link to that, unisound.us is
That's
that
right.
website. Yeah, so we'll link to all that information. And I can't wait for the day that we are back together and actually doing these instrument petting zoos again, because it's an awesome experience for us. It's for the kids, but I think just to be there and watch them do it, it's really an amazing experience.
It is. It's like to see some of that pure joy. I think a lot of times when you think of an advanced student, let's be honest, it's hard to find a picture of a kid smiling while they're playing their instrument, because they're usually very, very focused.
Yes.
But you can see some of that pure joy at instrument petting zoos because they're so delighted by some of the sounds they make. It's really inspiring. I really love being a part of that. So we're hopeful that we can get back together with instruments and kids again. And, one of the things we talk a lot about in our meetings, we probably bring it up at least once a week, is can you even imagine what that first rehearsal is going to be like when we get back together? Like, just, walking in the room, and of course we're all probably still going to be a little scared, but like when we sit down and actually play those first notes together, I probably will cry. I probably will. So it'll be really special. So we talk a lot about at TRYPO about focusing on the silver linings, and we talk about that in our staff. We talk about that with our students, because if you don't, you'll go crazy. And so I think about one of the big silver linings that we have in this whole situation is that I have a hard time believing that people will take, I think that live performance and music and the opportunity to play together or listen to live performance is going to feel so much more meaningful in a way that maybe we will recognize we were taking it for granted before. And I hope that lasts, when we have the opportunity to appreciate it again. I hope it lasts for a long time, just like, I think about actually right before the shutdown happened, I go to most of the Pittsburgh Symphony concerts because my husband's in the orchestra. And I didn't go to the one right before the shutdown. I'd had a really long day. I was really tired. I was like, oh, I'll go next week. And I have a huge regret about that. Like, I missed the last concert. I didn't, because I was tired. But I didn't know.
It's so funny that you say that, because I'm looking at my calendar for this week, and I have on the calendar, I'm supposed to be at the symphony on Friday night. And there are times when, because I go Friday nights, and it's 8 o'clock, and I'm like, why does it have to start so late? Why, because then you're out till 11 or so. And I'm looking at my calendar this week, and I'm having the exact same thought as you. I wish I would be able to go out at 8 o'clock on Friday night and hang out at the symphony for a couple hours. So it is going to be all that more meaningful and all that more different. I completely agree with you when we're all back together.
Yeah.
Lindsey, thanks for taking some time to talk with us today. And folks, you can check out trypo.org, unisound.us. We'll have the links to everything in the notes with the show. Again, Lindsey, thanks for joining us, and we'll talk to you next time.